make sure your knob is dialed, your volume knob.
I don't know what to do with that.
I don't either.
Make sure you attune your knob.
Yeah. Make sure to twist them to the appropriate angle.
Now there's more than one knob. We're twisting all the knobs.
Only the right one.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into Never Lag, here where we are doing our September about August podcast, as foretold, as was prophesied, each and every month. I am one of your hosts, Levi, joined by the man who fell in the pit. Across from me, Zach, with a crisp salute to start September. I like it. At ease.
Yeah.
At ease.
Dismissed.
Yeah, we're back. So we're going to talk about everything that was August for us personally. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming along for the ride. How was your August?
It was pretty good. It was post Erd Tree. I can't remember. I think technically, I think I technically finished out of the Erd Tree like within the first few days of August, and then we did our July episode like a week or two late. So we already talked about Erd Tree in the last episode. If you want to know what we thought about that, but after that, I kind of I had a decision to make. What do you do after a game like that? What do I dive into? This was still, I think, a week or two out from Black Myth Wukong being released. I think it was 2 weeks. It was long enough that I couldn't just wait around with no game to play. Because I think if it had been a week or less, I would have been like, I'm just going to wait for Black Myth Wukong and play that. But I had like 2 weeks. So I was like, I need to start something. And I have a pretty long backlog of games I need to play. Like, I never played Horizon Forbidden West when that came out 2 years ago. I'm a big fan of that series. It's been 2 years and I just never really played it. I haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't finished Lies of P. I haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom. And so I kind of ended up picking up
list. Yeah,
I know. I got some things I really need to get through. So I ended up
was Forbidden West. I thought Forbidden West was last year. It wasn't right before Erd Tree, or Erd Tree was 2022.
I mean,
what's
Elden
happening?
Ring was 2022.
I'm sorry, Elden Ring.
Yeah, because Elden Ring came out like a week or two after Forbidden West, if I recall correctly.
No, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I know
it's
been 2.5 years at this point.
Crazy.
So I was kind of like I don't know what to do. So do you want to go through one of my games first, or how did August treat you?
August was good. I feel like I played. I was looking back through it, and I felt like I played a lot of stuff. And I guess I did, but less like maybe less full games or like new games than I thought. I don't know. I can start with some quick hitters just to get them out of the way. I mean, we all know I've continued to play
some
Wuthering
appetizers.
Waves. Yeah. It's fun. There's actually not a lot going on in the game right now. It's one of those single player live service games, which are kind of my weekly bread and butter. I don't really like the multiplayer stuff too much. I'm waiting for something to hit like Destiny did back in the day, and current Destiny isn't doing it. So that said, I did check out some Final Shape with the little brother. We started it playing through the campaign together, and we got interrupted like 2 or 3 missions in. So that'll probably be, I'll be able to speak more. I think we might finish that this month. That'll be one of the goals. But I got to say, the first couple missions, I mean, it got me on board. We were fully in, we were invested. The character moments and kind of dialogue and things were just kind of firing on all cylinders, I got to say. So looking forward to getting back to at least doing that campaign. I'd love to try the raid. Really late to getting to all this, as we'll talk about in another show. But with all the fires to put out at Destiny or at Bungie. What else is quick hitters here?
Man, I just on the Destiny front, I always feel the slight pull to like come back to it. And then I start looking into all of the hoops I would need to jump through to get back into Destiny years later. And it's like, I don't think I'm going to. I don't think
it's like a full-time job. It's like taking on a full-time job. And we already have those. So the only quick hitter is, I'll say, my wife actually, we were sick she especially was sick this past month. She doesn't really play a lot of games, but she was sick, and I guess the mood was just right. She wanted some games to play, and I gave her a handful of recommendations of things that I feel like anyone can enjoy, not necessarily a gamer. And she ended up playing from start to finish Rift Apart. And so I got to kind of watch that out of the corner of my eye. And I was trying not to watch too much because I kind of want to replay it. It's been just long enough. But as she was playing through it, I was just like, this game we haven't seen a game run and look this good yet since it came out. It's just one of the best, most well-made video games we've ever gotten. So that was a good reminder.
Next gen. Yeah, truly a next gen experience. I feel
It's
like that term
just a
gets
visual
thrown around
treat.
a lot. And that term gets thrown around a lot. I think there are a lot of games. I think there are a lot of games that kind of straddle like a game that looks really good in some ways, but feels like it's kind of still the in between generations type of experience. Like I feel like even a lot of the more recent releases fall into that. But something about Rift Apart, it was one of those experiences that just it looks like what PS5 looked like in my head.
Yeah,
And
it was one of those moments that you remember growing up, the PS3 comes out or whatever, and you experience a game and you're like, holy crap, this is the next gen. This is what games are going to be like. And then lo and behold, we have not seen a single game even come close to Rift Apart, in my opinion. So
yeah, it felt kind
it
of
was
like
just a reminder. It was a reminder for sure.
a stark reminder. It just reminds you as a kid, like we would play like the old Super Nintendos or things like that. And then I remember when I was 6 or 7 coming downstairs and there was an N64 box on the kitchen table that my dad had gotten. We plugged it in, started playing, and it was like playing 3D games on the TV that at the time looked so amazing, but it was mind blowing. And Rift Apart did that for me a little bit where it looked so high quality. And I feel like we sometimes talk about games that look kind of like a Pixar film. This one like really is toe to toe.
It feels like Ratchet and Clank is that. Every time Ratchet and Clank comes out, we go, "Oh my goodness, this actually looks like a Pixar film." Like we did that with I think A Crack in Time.
Yeah. It's so good. And then that plus it making use of like the SSD technology so that when you're teleporting between realms,
zipping around,
you just instantly transport. And not, a lot to say on that game, but it felt different. So I want to get back to that at some point as well.
I'm jealous about your Nintendo experience though. That was the one thing I'm missing that part of my childhood. The only Nintendo exposure I ever got was I had a friend who was the Nintendo guy, and I would go to his house to play the Mario Karts and the what else would I play over there? I mean, I'm sure Mario, Donkey Kong Country. Mm-hmm. But the only one I ever had in the house as a kid was a PlayStation, so that's why.
That's why you are the way
you pick your side at 6 years old. You pick your side, and you never leave. Like that's how it works.
That's true. Yeah, and I was always kind of both PlayStation and Nintendo. So
that's Nintendo's bread and butter, though. They're like, we're not a part of this. You can be green, you can be blue, but you're gonna be red. So
yeah, Nintendo's like, the only thing we're going to steal is your beloved childhood memories. So that in order to feel something, anything as an adult, you have to go buy Nintendo. And that was
you can argue about these other consoles, but you're still gonna buy us. So.
Yeah, when you want to feel like a kid again, and it really does. It really does. So good for them.
Good on them. So yeah, those are my quick hitters. I've got 4 things to talk about. What do you got? Do you have less?
I got 2.
All right, we'll start with one of mine.
Okay.
First of all, Zach, I want to take you back to possibly your childhood. 35 years ago.
That was a great time for my internet to freeze. I literally missed the punchline.
Oh, I said 35 years ago.
Here's
take you back to your childhood.
Oh, I heard that's brutal. As a side note, recently my younger brother's getting married, and we went to his engagement party. Met a bunch of his like new family he's marrying into, and I had multiple people ask me if I was his dad. My younger brother's 29. I'm 33. Like I'm not that much older.
4 years.
It's a big 4 year. I had multiple people like, so are you his dad? I'm like, he looks a little on the younger side, but even if he was in his early 20s, like, we're assuming that I'm probably late 40s, maybe early 50s here.
Yeah, so that's a pretty 50.
Pretty brutal joke you got there.
I'm younger than the bride.
I'm younger than the bride. Yeah.
A very composed, demure
Very
response there.
composed, not at all offensive to my younger brother's love of his life.
No existential crises
None.
happening.
It's time for
Anyways,
me to go
back to
buy
your
some Nintendo. Yeah.
childhood, which I guess would actually be like more like 40 years ago. Um, what's your exposure to Crash Bandicoot? Have you ever exposed yourself to the Bandicoot?
Yeah, I am. I've been exposed to Crash Bandicoot, and he's been exposed to me on a
Oh
variety.
gosh, sounds intimate.
Right.
Okay, so you're
Right.
familiar.
Yeah, I played some Crash Bandicoot as a kid.
Gonna have to mark not for children for sure on this one.
Yeah, I already do that because you never know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I definitely played Crash Bandicoot as a kid. Fond
Okay.
memories.
Did you touch the remakes?
I touched them and they touched me.
That was not even intentional.
I know.
Oh, it just keeps going.
Yeah, I did pick up the remake from like, what was it, like 5 years ago, and
Yeah, it's been a minute.
I played some of that. I never ended up finishing it because I got it right before we moved states and life got really busy, and I just didn't finish it. But I probably
Just one of those
played,
time periods.
yeah, but I probably played a good 8 to 10 hours of it. My wife actually, I think, beat that one. She went back and replayed it a couple years ago. So yeah,
Okay.
I have played it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
I
so
need to get back to it.
Yeah, the remake is Crash 1 through 3 all bundled into one game. And it's phenomenally true to the original games. It's just masterfully done because it updates everything. It looks great, but it still plays and feels like original Crash Bandicoot, which is pretty amazing because I'm pretty sure they rebuilt this from the ground up. And that comes with pros and cons because it's also infuriating in the same ways. Like, the platforming is retro in that kind of it's really difficult, but maybe not necessarily for the right reasons sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, way back when that came out, I played 1 and 2, got the platinums, pretty tough platinums, just had a blast, but I kind of burnt out. I ran out of steam after I started the third one and never finished it, never got past the first couple levels. And I was hankering for some nostalgia, and I was like, you know what, let me download Crash and see if I'm ready to go back through Crash 3. What was it called? Warped, I think. And so to start the month, there's DLC. I believe it's an unreleased level that was never released back in the day for Crash 1, and it's called Stormy Ascent. And it's just this like over the top, absurdly difficult level. And it did that beautiful thing we all love where it takes your platinum of 100% and changes it to a platinum of like 90%. And so I remember back in the day, I was like, oh, I got to get this time trial because that's how a lot of what the platinum is getting through the level in a certain time while hitting specific crates that will freeze the clock for a few seconds. And I never got it. And so to start the month, I started with that, and it took me, man, I bet you it took me 3 or 4 hours to get this one level done. But I kid you not, there is nothing like Crash Bandicoot at all, but it's specifically when you think of like platforming games that challenge you in the same way that a FromSoft game would, and they give you the same sense of frustration and the same sense of achievement.
Yeah.
Because when I got this time trial done and I crushed the time trial. I probably had 20 seconds to spare. And it was just such a satisfying feel. Like I saved the video, it's on my phone. Sometimes I watch it, just for fun. Like it's just, there's nothing like Crash Bandicoot. And I wish more platformers would really go for that kind of punishingly difficult. Yeah, you can play this game and it's chill and it's easy and it's for kids. But if you want to really dig into like mastering this or getting these trophies, like your hands are going to hurt,
Yeah.
And I love it for that. I just had a blast. And so from there, I went into Crash 3. And I got to say, off the top, Crash 3, I think, is my least favorite of the 3. Looking back at them, I'm trying to remember which ones I played the most as a kid. I think it was 2, mainly because the hub worlds are different in each one. 1 is more of like a Donkey Kong Country hub world. 2 kind of opens up into a 3D hub world where you have like elevators into different rooms with doors.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I remember the most. So I think that's the one I have the most nostalgia for. And then 3, I don't know if I had much. I don't know if I exposed myself much to it. So it doesn't have that going for it, but also I just think mechanically in 3 they kind of tried to get a little spicy with, I mean, you like unlock almost like Metroidvania-esque, you unlock different abilities as you progress through bosses. You get like a double jump and the ability to like spin continuously and kind of glide. And some of these are cool, but it kind of ultimately ends in a more clunky, less streamlined feeling Crash. Because what's so great about Crash is it's like 2 buttons, and you
Yeah.
just have to get really good at 2 buttons. This one kind of, it feels like it's trying to do too much. But that said, I had a blast. I played through the whole thing. The platinum I think was easier than the first 2. The time trials only required you to get gold instead of the platinum relics, which were much easier. I think most of the time trials I got within 2 to 3 tries. But I just had a blast with it. It's amazing how well those games hold up, and I know they've been remastered, but at their core concept, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they play so well. They play well enough that I wish someone would just make another one. I wish people would be making more of these because I think they're
Yeah.
just so good, and I think we're a little bit devoid of just straight platformers.
Yeah.
In the market. It's always a platformer doing something else, a platform puzzler, a platform shooter, a platform, there's not just platformers as much anymore.
Yeah. Let's just take it back to its roots, like something done simply but well.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. I feel like the games industry has gotten a little bit too intent on disrupting itself at times.
Yeah. And I think that was part of it. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but like the industry is kind of continues to be on fire. There's good, but there's a lot of bad. And I think part of it was just like, I want to go back and play
Yeah.
something from the simple times, when
Mm-hmm.
games were just games and they came in a box and you played them and
Yep.
they were what they were. And sometimes they were bad, but even if they were bad, you kind of just, it just was what it was and you played them, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Just drank a Kool-Aid and sat back, ate some cat dog shaped Cheez-Its, and
Yeah, those
enjoyed the
little
simpler
those little
times.
like nipple things that you dip in the powder sugar.
Yeah.
One of those.
Those
What
were
is, I don't
good.
know what this is. Ring. The
Ring
rings.
pop.
I don't remember the names of any of the ring pops.
I know I'm like
I'm trying to
blanking
think
on.
of anything from.
Yeah.
It was a good time though. I enjoyed Crash 3 a lot.
Nice.
It was a nice.
Yeah.
It was what I was needing, and it was a nice change of pace. And
Mm-hmm.
if you like platformers, or if you for some reason haven't liked Crash and haven't checked out the remake, like they're so good. And I don't know when we'll get the next Crash because the industry sucks.
Yeah. We'll talk
We
about that
should
in
be
our next
getting
episode. But
another one, but who
yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Cool. Crash is always good. I plan to get back to the was it Crash 4 or like the most recent one. I plan to get back to that at some point. But
Crash 4 is so good.
yeah.
Like I love the first 3 games and they're amazing. Crash 4 is better in every way than the first 3 games without losing what Crash is. It's phenomenal, and I'm so angry that we're not immediately getting a sequel from the exact same team.
Yeah. Or that exact same team is even really a team anymore. But again, that's a conversation for another time. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
What do you got?
So the first game, I'm playing 2 games at the moment. The first game that I'm playing is a continuation, so I decided I really need to finish Tears of the Kingdom. I love the game. I'm kind of doing the same thing I did with Breath of the Wild back in the days. I was so impressed with the game, and I loved it so much, but it's also so open ended that I kind of just let it drag on for far too long. And I think part of that is just it's easy to just kind of get lost in the world repeatedly. And I think part of that is I just don't really want it to be over, but Tears of the Kingdom, I need to finish for the sake of having experienced the story at least. Right. So I'm trying to reprioritize that because it's been over a year since that came out, and it feels like one of my favorite games. Breath of the Wild is like a top, one of my top games. And I think this um, will sit up there as well. So I decided to pick that back up. I'm playing that on my Switch whenever I'm like on the go, or just not at my TV. And I'm just continuing my playthrough. I think I had 2 of the Divine Beasts done at the point I had left off, and since then I am finishing up the 3rd Divine Beast right now. And so I'm kind of like, in terms of the main dungeons, I'm kind of like, I don't know if that would be 3/4. There's also like whatever the last dungeon is. I would say I'm kind of like
Yeah,
more than
I would say
halfway.
you can break the game down into like main story would be fifths. So I would
Yeah.
say you're about 60% of the way.
Almost, yeah. I'm almost about 60% done, and there's still a decent amount more of exploration and some side stuff I need to
Although to be
do.
honest, the final bit is a bit more than those, maybe. So maybe less, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's, good progress. I still have a ways to go. And I'm collecting all the memories and stuff so that I can piece together the story, because that's a big thing you've said. And like, my daughter has beat this game twice now and she's like, you gotta know the story. So working on that and really enjoying it. There's nothing like those games and just dropping into this version of Hyrule and just exploring. Um, but Tears of the Kingdom is just so many added interesting things on top of what they built, with the various mechanics and the various zones. Like you have sky islands and you have the depths, and just the way the game takes you all over the place. And you'll find yourself up in the sky doing something and then diving down through a hole in the earth and underground in the dark. And then you'll find yourself in a place that feels familiar from the last game, but is different as well. Um, I could probably go on for hours about this game, but it's there's nothing like it. It's so peaceful and reflective. The mechanics are so strange and interesting in this. Like they've added so many interesting things that just fundamentally change how you interact with the world. And there are very few video games that do anything near as ambitious as this. Like this is truly altering reality with the tools you have in a way that doesn't break the video game and still has some type of internal consistency. And it feels unique. Like a lot of games these days, or it's like, oh, this is a shooter, or this is a action RPG, or like whatever. Whereas this, it feels kind of like this unique thing where it's like, yeah, it's an RPG, yeah, it's an adventure game, yeah, there's combat, yeah, there's some platforming or like some traversal, but there's also all of these weird like logic puzzles, and there's it forces you to interact with the world in such a unique way that it just does what video games only do when they're at their best, in my opinion. Is it like it kind of changes your brain chemistry a little bit. So really enjoying that. I don't know how fast I'm going to finish it, but my goal is to finish Tears of the Kingdom over the next couple months, definitely before the end of the year, so that I can just be like, okay, that experience is done. I can put it on my top 10 and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to finish it. Ugh. I mean, if it's dragged out that long, I guess, but it's just the story in this one is so much more impactful than Breath of the Wild that I hope you're able to experience it at a pace that it really hits. I love
The good thing
the
with the
little
memories is you can go
memories
back
that
and
you find.
rewatch them,
I know, yeah,
like the whole cutscene. So
that's
that's what
true.
I'm planning to do, is like find the
Especially
ones,
if you're
and I'm
not
trying to
finding
do
them
it.
in order.
I'm trying to find. I found a guide to like find them in order, because the first few I didn't necessarily, and then so I'm gonna try and like re-experience them all in order, and then before I finish it, I'm just gonna watch through all of the cutscenes just so that I get the full effect.
Yeah, I mean, Breath of the Wild was is I don't know, my favorite game of all time, and it always will have a spot there because it was our first introduction to what these games are, which is there's nothing like it, like you said. It's just a world. There's you do all kinds of things, and it's just a perfect tranquil world to
Yeah,
exist in. But it's hard to not say Tears of the Kingdom is it's hard to say that it's not a better game in every other way. Like really, they just took everything in Breath of the Wild and made it better in Tears of the Kingdom. I can't really think of one thing they did worse. Honestly, some of my biggest complaints are maybe returning outfits. I kind of wish there was a little bit more new. I think that's the biggest complaint people have is like, oh, it's the same Hyrule, oh, it's the same outfits. I some of that, but that's it. That's the biggest critique you can really levy against the game. Everything else is an improvement, pretty much. So, even just like off the top of my head, thinking of the towers from Breath of the Wild,
yeah,
they were cool, but they were they were Ubisoft. I mean, you there was some puzzle elements, but you mostly just kind of slow climbed up to the top of them and then unveiled the map. And I expected them maybe to. I was like, how are they going to do that again? That would seem kind of odd in the same area. And they managed to work around it, but the changes to where now there's maybe more puzzle elements that are kind of less obvious. They're not like you don't walk up and see, oh, I need to figure out how to do this. You kind of walk up and you're like, this is locked. Why is it locked? Let me go talk to this NPC. Let me go dig
Yeah.
around below the mountain. There's like less clear puzzle elements to the towers. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you unlock them, the mechanic that works so perfectly with the Sky Islands and just traversal in general of shooting you like hundreds of feet into the air
Yeah.
is just so much better. Like it's just so much more fun.
And instead of just uncovering the map, it like grants you access to the sky islands in that vicinity. So like
Right
shoots you
above
up.
it.
You can
Yeah.
now land in those islands. You can survey the land as you kind of fall to the ground or whatever. And you
So
can start to see
yeah.
topographically like, okay, here's the areas I want to go explore next. It all works in harmony so much. I mean, the first game works great too, but everything comes together so beautifully. I've been thinking about this too because Breath of the Wild has been my favorite game, on like my number one spot on my list for a while, um, and I don't know what to do with this because I feel like Breath of the Wild is always going to have that special place, but I also agree that this is maybe just better in every way. And it's kind of like how you can have two infinities with one infinity being larger than the other. Like my brain doesn't comprehend it and I don't know how to put it on a list, but that's kind of the way I look at it is like, yeah, both are infinity, but one is larger. So
I love
good
how you
stuff.
just said that. Like that's common sense, common knowledge. You know, you can have two infinities, but one's smaller. Get that.
Math, simple
Get
math,
that
folks.
heresy. Get that heresy out of here.
Go to school.
Unbelievable. I mean,
I
honestly,
think
when
they
you
tell you that in school. I don't know.
by the time you finish, well, they also told me Pluto was a planet, then it wasn't a planet. Like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're all over the place, but what I said is right.
It's on the
Just
internet
remember that.
soon, so it will be. Um, I think once you finish Tears of the Kingdom, I hear you because I still have the same problem, but because in my heart I'm like Breath of the Wild, it hit so hard because it was pure surprise. I remember
Yeah,
getting Breath of the Wild having zero clue what I was getting into. So Tears of the Kingdom, it suffers from we know what we're getting into, but I still think it surprises enough.
I
And
agree.
by the time you
Yeah,
finish the game and you get some of these story moments that I can't wait to talk about,
yeah.
I don't know there's any way to put Breath of the Wild above it. I really don't. And you can just cheat like I do and
That's what I'm
put a
gonna
rubber
do.
band
Yeah,
around both of them, and then they
that's
both exist at
absolutely
one.
what I'm gonna do. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
don't make me make that choice. It's like choosing your kids. You know,
exactly. Except harder, maybe.
except much harder. So yeah,
All
happy to be
right,
playing it again. What about you? What's your next thing you played?
we'll talk about it more next month. Hopefully you can. Yeah, I hope you're able to beat it.
Yeah,
You got to get on that, man. All
I
right,
know. I know.
we're going from Crash 3 to Cat Quest 3. Playing all the threes. Cat Quest 3 is a game that. Do you know anything about this game?
Only what you told me, and when you first messaged me that you just finished Cat Quest 3, it sounds so generic. Like it sounds like when you're watching a TV show, that's what the protagonist was playing
Yeah,
when they
yeah,
get
it kind of
interrupted with
does.
whatever the story is. It's like, oh, that's Cat
Cat
Quest 3,
Quest
of course.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about Cat
Yeah,
Quest 3.
so I mean, this has never been on my radar. I didn't know there were two of them. Um, but it came out I believe it came out in August. It was a new release in August. And it was just getting really good reviews. I had some reviews pop up and I watched a couple little reviews of it. And first of all, the art style is so my jam. Like it's got that I mean, I guess you would go back to like a Paper Mario, but it's the more modern I think of Tinykin, where it's
Yeah.
like these worlds that have depth to them. They're kind of an
Oh, this looks
isometric
nice.
camera, or
Yeah.
even Tinykin is just a third person action game. So these worlds have like 3D depth to them, but all of the assets and characters are this more 2D
Mm-hmm.
paper looking character. And I just think that art style is so. I'm realizing that is one of my favorite art styles. I loved Tinykin. I thought that the art style was
Mm-hmm.
just so enjoyable, and this is it's really that. And then also the other thing is it's a pirate themed game. So
Yeah.
this
This
third
looks
entry
so
of
good.
Cat Quest that I'm jumping into, unapprised of the first two, is set in a Caribbean like area, and everything's pirate themed, and you're sailing around on a ship.
It's
And so that
beautiful.
all like
Blue
that sells
water,
me.
green islands. It looks nice.
Yeah, it's visually stunning. It really is.
Yeah.
Um, and so that works for me. I mean, I love pirate stuff. I always have. So, and it is a cheap indie game. I was like, let me check this out. And It was great. It's so the thing with Cat Quest 3, and I assume the other ones, if you're a diehard Cat Quest fan, you'll know this, but they're not super. They're not trying to be super deep or super complex. It has enough systems in play that it's engaging, but I could really see this being. It really walked a fine line between I could see this being a kid's game, like a kid playing this and being able to have fun with it, and then me as a grown adult being able to sit down and it still keeping my attention span and making me laugh with there's constant puns about cats or whatever animal you're speaking to. Like everything is pun related in this world, and some of it's kind of corny, but it was able to keep my attention and it was funny, and the gameplay is fun. Having your own little ship, everything is very seamless and easy and video game like, which I think they nailed, because this isn't trying to be Red Dead Redemption 2 or something. Like you hop into your ship, it controls like a video game ship. There's no inertia or anything weird going on. Everything just is. You can hop out of your ship into your ship. Everything is very quick and easy to do. Gameplay is fast and responsive, um, and it's honestly, like, I think I told you guys this. It's a 10 out of 10 for what it's trying to do. Like if you want a 10-hour little RPG romp through a cat infested Caribbean island, I mean, like, it just does it perfectly. I don't know. There's tons of different weapons. You can actually like create builds in this game. So I said it wasn't
Wow.
terribly complex, but it has enough there where it's like, oh, if I want to make a casting build, I could go that way. Or if I want to make a shield build, I can make a shield build, or like do this element, or
Mm-hmm.
there's different like accessories or charms you can equip to bolster certain builds or things you're trying to do, different weapons, different armors that give you different perks. So it has all the RPG elements there, to where you really can kind of create a build and get stronger as you level up, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, it just was a delight. Fun
That's
little
awesome.
game. I highly recommend if you want a little breather in between something bigger or more serious. I love when little games like this show up and they are in a smaller package, smaller price point, and you can just
Yeah.
kind of get through them in a weekend or so and really enjoy your time with them. So
I'd like to check this one out at some point, because this type of art style and then the setting with like just the nice tropical islands, like there's something so
the
peaceful
water's
about
so
that.
perfect,
I
and
know it's like a vacation that I can actually afford to take, which is depressing.
yeah, $20
I can't go to the
vacation.
Caribbean, so I'm just gonna play Cat Quest 3 and try and enjoy a beach vacation vicariously through these little paper cats. So that's
Yeah,
cool. I don't know when I'll play it, but this is one that I
yeah,
can see
yeah.
myself enjoying.
It has a very satisfying progression, though. I mean, it's an open world, so you can explore kind of at your leisure. Certain areas have higher enemies, so it's very RPG in that way. You'll wander into an area and you'll be like, oh, I can't mess with these guys yet. There's side quests. There's all kinds of interesting little puzzles or secrets you can find throughout this map, which is not
Yeah.
terribly big, but it's just big enough to like really make you want to explore every inch of it. And had a satisfying conclusion. Um, some really colorful characters. It just kind of it does everything well. There's not really
Yeah.
anything this game doesn't do well. So you know what? I'll be paying attention for Cat Quest 4, but I gotta be honest, the Caribbean thing is really pulling a lot of weight for me. Like I just
Yeah.
loved having my own little ship and sailing around this map. So
Mm-hmm.
there you go. I would say definitely recommend if this seems up your alley. $20. I don't think you can. If you look at this and you're like, oh, that looks kind of fun, I don't think you'll go wrong.
Yeah. Nice.
There's my 2 cents.
All right, so you got two left that you've played.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go ahead and do one more, and then I can do mine, and you can do your last one.
All
Maybe.
right. After this intermission, I don't know.
Please
I got
stand
nothing.
by.
Yeah. Okay. My last two are Concord. I've been playing Concord nonstop all August, Zach,
Did you play some Concord though?
and I can't stop. No, I haven't touched Concord, not at all.
I was going to say, well, you have to now. It's gone. They wiped it from
Yeah,
everyone's
actually,
hard
is it gone
drives.
now? I think it's gone now.
I
I
think
don't
it's
remember
gone
if
now.
it.
I don't know. Yeah,
I
I
think it
don't
might
know
be
what happens
offline.
if you downloaded it and you try to access. I mean, it's on its live service, so presumably it just won't connect.
No, yeah, they're
It's
removing
gone.
it. They're removing access and refunding everyone. So, anyways, I meant to make that joke at the beginning of the episode, but I forgot. Doggone it. No Concord for me.
Yeah. No.
Let's do. Which one of these do you want to do first? I guess we'll do Genshin. We're gonna talk about Genshin again, guys. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are.
Hang in there, everyone.
But this time, it's not a like, oh, I'm playing some Genshin and it's just a daily thing. They actually had a big, we'll call it an expansion. Basically, these are expansions. This is one of the bigger media expansions that they release. It's got a whole new region, whole new. Obviously, there's always new characters, but new like gameplay elements, new a new element for your main character to get, all kinds of new story. Like it's just it's the biggest drop. Think original Destiny expansions. It's kind of like that, but for Genshin. Anyways, of course, always free. So I kind of jumped back in and was dipping my toe in before this dropped. And I guess I'll start by saying that for all the shade we can throw Genshin, and yeah, it's a gacha game and whatever. This game is truly stunning. Like, if you're playing, I know a lot of people play this on mobile. The fact that it's Genshin is such an impressive like concept, and obviously they're using gambling mechanics and like making bajillions of dollars off of it, which is pretty scummy. But like the fact that they made this game and it runs on mobile, and I don't know how much of their player base plays on mobile, probably a large percentage, I would guess. But it's enough of a game that you can play it on PC or PlayStation or whatever, and it doesn't feel like you're playing a mobile game. It feels like a game. And the thing is, this game looks stunning especially on PC. I'm playing on my ultra wide monitor, and it is just maybe one of the best looking games ever. Like I
That is
understand
impressive. Yeah.
I understand that it's very stylized, but for me, again, we'll talk about this later. I'm really done with the trying to be so realistic and it just not working and games not running well. Like, let's ditch that and just make games more stylized, like less fidelity. Just make them, well, not less fidelity, but less polygons, less detail in everything. Like, simplify things a little bit and really let games shine with their art style. That's what this game does. Obviously, it has to run on mobile, but it's incredible. I started by going into this. The map's gotten huge at this point. If you jump into Genshin now, it is like we're approaching Azeroth, maybe, not quite, but like it's a huge map. Yeah. So a couple years ago, there was an update called the Sumeru update, and this was basically a whole jungle region, very tropical, very different from anything we'd seen. But then the latter half of the Sumeru region descends into a very arid Sahara desert type of area. Almost more. Is this Sahara in Egypt? I don't think it is. Very Egyptian, deserty pyramids. And I had dabbled with that back then, but in my dipping my toes back into Genshin, I was like, you know what? I really like this desert area. Let me just focus on this. Let me finish some of these quests and whatever in this desert area. And so I started there for the first couple days, and I was just having a blast because it's funny. You go out over this vast desert, which still looks stunning, and you've got various pyramids buried in the sand, and there's stuff to do above the sand, but it looks like a desert. Once you get into some of these quests, you start going into these pyramids and beneath the sand, and it's just like these labyrinths of not overly complex puzzles, but a lot of different puzzles about how to open certain areas, or just basically these pyramids are giant puzzle chambers. And it's just very live service Breath of the Wild. Like, you get in there and you're just doing these puzzles and unlocking new areas and new parts of different pyramids, walking into rooms that have these like stunning vistas and just crazy skyboxes that, I mean, I've taken so many screenshots. And the music is so Aladdin, or it's just like, it's just really hitting the right vibes while you're in these pyramids, which I know that that's not Egyptian, but like it's just kind of hitting that desert tone just right. So anyways, I was having a blast with this, just like loving. I'm a sucker. As much as I like Caribbean, I also really like well done desert areas. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy them a lot, which is ironic considering Stellar Blade, but I said well done.
Yeah, that's the key.
Um, anyways, going into the meat of this, the new update came out. It's called the actually I don't know what it's called, but it introduced a new region called the Natlan region, and this whole region, its whole theming is very it's very African. Kind of, I'm getting some South America vibes as well. It's kind of like a hodgepodge of those, mostly African, and again, just stunning. Like this entire area is just I'm walking around taking screenshots, just jaw dropping, and also really hitting for me. It's got Lion King feelings music going on in the background, and there's these rhino giraffes and all these different creatures.
That sounds cool.
Um,
I do not need to be interested in Genshin
you don't, but
Impact.
it's actually
It
like
sounds pretty
it's not a
cool.
game I can. It's so Destiny because it's not a game I can recommend. They still don't let you skip
Yeah.
dialogue. So anytime there's dialogue,
Oh,
I'm sitting there just mashing the A button, like, come on, let's get through this. But I will say, it feels like there's been less dialogue, less wordy, maybe. I don't know.
that's
Maybe
good.
they're
I
dialing
wish
it
they would
back
just
on
let
that.
you skip the.
I know. Because honestly, if you could skip dialogue, I'd be like, yeah, this is worth it's worth
Yeah.
playing the main content in this game. Once the main content dries up and you're just kind of their events kind of suck. They're like very mobile game, dumbed down mini games.
Yeah.
But the main contents, when they drop a new area and there's a whole lot to do and explore, it is it's up there, man. It's like it really is single player live service Breath of the Wild esque. Like it is just there's nothing quite like this.
Yeah.
And some of the highlights, they introduced some new mechanics in this region where you can basically become the various creatures. There's different new creatures added in this region. I mentioned the giraffe thing, which I think is the one you can't become, but there's like these little, I don't know, bear rhino things. I guess I don't know, is everything a rhino? I don't know, but they can like dig. And so if you become one of them, you can like dig underground and solve certain puzzles, or you can like
Mm.
climb up cliffs really quick because they're just like in the rock. And they've got little like platforming challenges you can do with as these creatures. There's another one that's like a rabbit monkey that can like grapple onto stuff really quick, and there's platforming challenges for that. I reached a part of Natlan where it's very aquatic. It kind of reminds me of Way of Water from Avatar, which again, just visually stunning, fantastic, kind of playing on those Caribbean blue water vibes that I love. But you can become these like stingray shark creatures in the water and just like swim through the water really cool. Like they've just nailed some gameplay fundamentals here that feel really
Mm-hmm.
fun, and it just feels really fun and easy to explore this area. So that's been fantastic. Even the story, I'm one who like does not care and skips through anything. I've kind of been enjoying the characters and the story of this region. So I'm kind of gushing here, but like honestly, legitimately, I was playing this new Natlan region, taking screenshots, and I just was thinking to myself, this might be what I'm seeing here on my monitor might be the best looking video game I've ever looked at.
Man, looking at some screenshots of like this Natlan region is
It's
so cool.
so
Like,
good. Their art team
oh,
is like,
they're
for
killing
all
it.
the complaints I have about Genshin, their art team is maybe one of the best in the business. Like the just what
Yeah.
they're able to do and how it looks is incredible. So
See, this is what I want out of fantasy stuff, man.
I know.
I got to fix my PC if I want to play Genshin though. So.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like, man, people who are playing this on mobile are missing out because this
Mm-hmm.
game has the ability to look incredible. And it's just I was just soaking it in, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump back into it. I'm having a blast. I'm gonna play Natlin till I've wrapped just about everything up in there. I might even go back. There's a whole region that I've missed because I haven't really played Genshin regularly for a couple years. So
Yeah.
there's a whole other region that's like an underwater region, which I don't even know how that works. How do you get these characters underwater? I don't know what they're doing, swimming around. I'll probably go check that out after Natlin. But I'm back in, and I'm realizing that I don't dislike Genshin. I had kind of stopped Genshin and been like, it's just not for me. I dislike I dislike the daily Genshin. I dislike the content droughts. So, but when there's main content to be had, it really is an impressive game. And if it's If it's interesting to you and you have restraint with your wallet, it's free and it's pretty darn good. So I know
Yeah.
I keep bringing up these like gotcha games, and it's like, oh, you just log in for 15 minutes and do your thing, and that's kind of the worst part about them, honestly. And you try to distance
Yeah.
yourself from that as much as you can. But these full expansions really have stuff worth experiencing in them. So there's
Yeah.
my, I got to get it out there, and I'm ashamed, but
No, I
it's
mean,
impressive, man. Go look at
just
some
looking at the
screenshots, y'all.
Gatlin stuff. Yeah, it looks so good. And that alone is enough that I need to get my PC working. But if once my PC is working, I might check it out again, because I liked aspects of Genshin. It's just the gotcha stuff I don't love. The daily grind stuff I don't love and tend to not have a lot of time for. But if there's good content stuff where it's like you play it for a couple of weeks and like explore and do the stuff and then you kind of dip out for a while, I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah. And I mean, we're at a point now where if you haven't touched Genshin in a long time, or if you're brand new,
You'll be playing for a
there's
while.
there's too much to do. There's too much to
Yeah.
do. So you can really just kind of pick like what area interests you. As long as you got to get a team, you have to get a team built and up to level and stuff to explore. But that all kind of, they have a system where the world kind of can scale with you as you level. So if you're lower level, the world will scale down to you.
Yeah.
So that's not even the biggest problem. But yeah, you're at a point where you can jump into Genshin and just be like, huh, this area looks really interesting. Let me try and get over there and just explore this area. And then you can kind of pick and choose at this point. Whereas if you've been playing Genshin the whole time, there's been content droughts, and you can get worn out a little bit more. But we're at a time where
Yeah.
there's plenty to choose from in the game. It's gotten pretty large at this point.
Well, I didn't expect
There
for
you go.
this to finally be the month where you get me interested in playing Genshin again.
I know, right? Don't play Genshin, everybody. Don't do it, but maybe do it.
That's the best way to convince people. Is tell them not to.
Yeah, don't do it, Zach.
Yeah. Well, I can't because my PC is still broken.
Yeah,
I literally can't.
I mean,
and
it's
I don't
on mobile. Don't do
hate
that though.
I hate playing things on mobile. Just
Yeah, it's just not the way to game.
no, I just can't stand it. So that's not really gonna work. Okay, let's go into
now.
let's go into my final game. I after finishing Erdtree, and after a day or two of deliberation, I decided to play Horizon Forbidden West because I just really want to have experienced it. I loved the first game.
Has come.
Yeah, it just if the timing felt right, and I loved the first game, Zero Dawn, despite some of its issues. It was just a game that I've always really really loved. I love the idea, the aesthetic. The world is really interesting to me. And I'm happy to say I'm about 30 to 35 hours in, I think.
Oh, wow.
Maybe not. I'm not 100% sure.
You've been trucking.
I have been trucking. I would say
you got to be getting like into the meat of this thing then. At that point.
I would say I'm a good third or maybe slightly more into the story, like into the map. And it's a big map.
Only a
and
third? Holy
maybe
crap,
a little
you're
more.
You're going to put 100 hours into this game.
It's huge. There's a lot to do. I mean, I'm doing a lot of the side stuff. I'm exploring.
I'll have to check my time. I didn't think I was in there that much.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm more.
I guess I would say it's about a 70 to 80 hour game if you're enjoying it and not just trying to rush it. Yeah.
And I'm doing like most of the side stuff. I've been like
without the
doing
DLC.
the mini games. I haven't done the DLC. Yeah, DLC's in here somewhere. So, but I will say, like at first I was like, this is cool. It's more Horizon. I like the bow combat. That was always felt good to me. The robot dinosaurs are cool, and I love the system of scanning them to see their weak points and then aiming your bow and being able to like slow down time a little bit. It makes you feel like such an amazing hunter to see the glowing yellow weak spot and slow down time. But
right.
But it's
which
so
is funny because
fun.
we always make fun of that now in gaming, but it does it does it so well that it really triggers
really
your
well.
brain in the right way, and it's also giving you that sci-fi. Like it's just there's nothing quite like the sci-fi dinosaur hit of Horizon. Like nothing else is doing that. I mean, it's
nothing. Yeah, nothing's doing that. It's so it hits on the sci-fi front. It hits on the dinosaur front. It feels kind of like a fantasy game in terms of like the civilizations, like the different cities and their politics. Sure. And I love fantasy, so it's kind of a mishmash of a lot of things I really like. It just has a really good gameplay loop. Like the combat loop, I think is really good and really satisfying. The storylines tend to be pretty good. The facial capture and animations in this one is top tier. It looks
it's some of the best
stunning.
we've seen.
It looks really good. It's what I always wanted when I was younger. I'm more and more getting to the point of like enjoying video games where we're not having as much like cutscenes and story type stuff. Like, however, this one's done very well, and it's a very enjoyable version of that. And it's a world I'm finding myself lost in. I think one of the big unlocks in this game for me is the glider you get. And back when
100%.
Horizon Zero Dawn came out, it came out like a couple days before Breath of the Wild, and I think we both had this where we started Zero Dawn. We're like, this is pretty cool. Then we started Breath of the Wild, played that a little bit, jumped back into Zero Dawn, and we're like, what the
Played Zero
heck?
Dawn 2 years later.
Yeah, right. It's like, but you jumping back into Zero Dawn, it's like I can't climb, whatever walls I want. I can't just jump off and glide. And I do remember that being frustrating, where it's like you get to the
Yeah,
top of a mountain, and it's like I need to get right down there. I have to go all the way back down the mountain or fast travel or something. And it just
something less satisfying.
less
Yeah, for
satisfying
sure.
and more cumbersome.
And it wasn't even just I can't climb anything. It was literally like going from Breath of the Wild to back to Horizon, and you're like, here's this 2 foot boulder in front of me, and there's like an invisible wall above it, and I can't hop on top of this boulder. Like, it was stuff
Yeah.
like that was so jarring after Breath of the Wild, and I would argue should be jarring to anyone in 2024. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was tough.
It was tough. And I think Forbidden West has largely addressed that. It's not as good as Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. It's not like the most modern take on open world traversal and exploration, but it's very good and it's modern enough. First of all, you have the glider, so it's like you have to do like an opening area before you get it, kind of like Breath of the Wild, and that's fine. Once you get that, like before you go into like the big part of the map, um, that just it changes everything, where you'll get to the top of it's so satisfying to get to the top of a mountain. And another thing I must say is the skyboxes, the vistas, the the size of this map is actually crazy impressive, especially as you progress through it and you kind of do that thing where you're on a mountain peak and you're like, oh, I can see some of the peaks that I think I've been to, and you look at your map and you're like, oh, actually it's over there, and it's like way in the distance. And it uses scale and distance and like just such a large map, um, so effectively. And you can go to so much of it, like it really feels like that. But then of course it's like, okay, time to go do something else. You just jump off, you glide. um, One complaint is the glider, like the angle of descent of the glider is a
It's pretty
bit too
steep.
steep. Yeah, and I think you had the same opinion.
It's falling with style. It's not really gliding.
Yeah, it's a little too
It's more of
close
a
to
Buzz
parachuting.
Lightyear glider.
But it gets the job done, and so I wish it was a little bit. You could glide a little farther, but it still works. It still unlocks the map in a way you need it to be unlocked. The other thing they did is they made, in the original games, like you could only climb where there were like little yellow handholds. And in this one, they've kind of made it so that there are a lot of rock formations you can climb where if you click your scanner, it highlights what's climbable with like yellow lines. And a lot of stuff is climbable, not everything, but enough. And a lot of the things you would think to climb or want to climb are climbable. There's not near, I haven't run into very many invisible walls. There are still a few here and there, but I think for the most part, again, it's
I would
not
agree.
perfect.
I think it's a big improvement from Zero Dawn.
It's like 85% there, I would
I
say.
don't
And
really remember. Actually, I don't really remember any invisible walls annoying me in Forbidden
yeah,
West at all.
I haven't
So
really either. And with the climbing thing too, is like there's been one or two times where I'm like, oh, I wish I could climb that. But for the most part, you can climb most of the stuff I've wanted to. And they use it there are a couple of places where like you have to kind of figure out the puzzle of how you climb there, and that can be kind of satisfying. So I think it works well. I think they did the job they needed to do. Um, so overall, my thoughts on this is just that the map in the world is so cool. There's a lot of different there's a lot
what's
of
your favorite
variety.
location you've been to so far?
Ooh, good question. Um, I don't know yet. I haven't gotten to the coast, and I have a feeling I'm gonna really like being by like the
The
ocean and
coast
the
is great.
water. So I don't like. I suspect that might be it. So far, I've really enjoyed the variety of biomes. Like you start off in more, you're in the mountains, and you're kind of in a mountain valley, and then you progress to. It gets a little bit more lush. There's more like forests and trees,
Have
and then
you
there's
have
like
you made
a
it to Plain Song?
Plain Song's really cool. Yeah, it's like the tree city or whatever. I
Yeah,
do
kind
like
of like
that. Like this,
bamboo.
yeah, and it's like the city is up and you go up into it. I always love
Pretty
that
cool.
type of
Yeah,
thing. That's pretty
I
neat.
will say these cities, the towns. I guess they're cities, not quite cities, but like
Yeah.
They're bigger than town. Maybe they're just towns
They're
in
fantasy
this
city,
game.
like city. Yeah,
Fantasy towns, whatever. They are really cool. Like
they're cool.
they're all fairly distinct, if not in architecture, in location for sure, and the
Hmm.
way that they're like positioned or utilize the environments around them, or they feel so organic, like someone really built this town
Yeah,
on the edge of a waterfall or in the middle of a desert, or used, the bamboo to create these really unique looking structures in the middle of this plain.
yeah.
um the towns are super cool. That my favorite thing I think about breath or what are we talking about here?
Forbidden
Forbidden
West.
West is the location or the locations. I think
Yeah,
this
I
map,
think
as
me
you
too.
said, the diversity and how well executed each area feels is just it's so cool. Each location feels so different from the next, and it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
the
And then
region
my
I'm in
least
right
favorite thing,
now.
here's the question I
Oh,
forgot to lead off with.
yeah.
Did they fix the dismounting animation yet?
Um,
Or does
I don't use
Aloy
my
just
mount a whole
like,
lot, and I forgot
oh
to
yeah?
check.
You'll have to
I'll check
check
and
next
report
time.
back. I don't think they did though, because a lot of
My
the
least
other
favorite thing about this game, I swear, if they could just go back and tune up the
just touch up the
animations, there are
animations. Yeah,
some really janky animations in this game that kind of can really throw you
yeah.
for a
My
loop.
guess is they haven't,
But
because I've noticed issues with animations in a lot of other places. Like when you're
that's the
sometimes
biggest complaint I have.
sometimes when I'm climbing, like it'll get weird, and it's like I'll be holding something invisible next to the rock.
Yep.
Not all the time, but like
Or
when it happens, it's
Aloy
like,
will just do something like super like janky and glitch out with her body, or it's just there's
yeah.
weird
Or
stuff all the
I got
time.
a screenshot. I forgot to send it to you. A video of like I was in this coliseum in the jungle area. I forget the name of the coliseum, but there's like a coliseum where fighting
Oh yeah,
happens,
yeah.
and at one point you're like kind of up on the rafters of the coliseum, and when there's fighting going on, and two people were fighting, and they were fighting on open air for a while, and like I shot
It's
like
got some Ubisoft in it.
it's some stuff
It
like that,
does.
and it by no means does it ruin the game. Like the game's still great. It's not that big of a deal, but there's enough of it that it's like, for what this is, it takes you out of it, and it's like,
Yeah,
what are we doing
100%.
here?
I think if they fix the animations and there weren't as much jank with the animations, I think this game is, I mean, it's up there. This
It's
is
up
a
there.
this is a
Yeah.
top tier game.
I
So,
think this is going
and
to
it
be in my
still
top
is.
10. I think this might
Yeah.
be in my top 10. And because yeah, the animations, like there are some other ones where you're climbing and you're just like in the wall or whatever. And it's like,
I've
what?
got some
Come on.
funny video clips.
Yeah. But um, aside from that, just the other thing I'll say is I remember when this game first came out, there was some performance issues, and areas didn't look as good. Like it just looked off. I haven't noticed that on this playthrough, and I'm playing 2 years later, so I would hope
It's
uh,
improved. They've
it's
they've improved it through
they
patches for sure.
they've improved it enough that this is one of the prettiest games I've played in a long time. And part of that is like the art direction and the skyboxes and the style and the design of the different biomes and cities and all of these things. But some of that is like this is actually a pretty good game in terms of like I think performance and fidelity. Like I feel like it's walking the line pretty well now. I wish it hadn't taken so long to get there, but I do feel like they've gotten there. It's just been a
Yeah, it's hard for
visual.
me not to. I'm trying to let go of my resentment because I have a
Yeah,
long storied resentment towards
yeah,
Forbidden West on this channel and the way it launched, and I wanted to play it, and it looked like such a garbaggio. And still, I will maintain this game has moments where you're like, this is phenomenal looking, and it still has moments
it
where you're
has
like,
some
oh, this
yeah.
kind of looks like crap.
It's
But
not consistent all the
largely,
way through. I agree.
yeah, I will agree largely with my recent playthrough and into the DLC. Um, it was not something on my mind. I was able to get immersed and not even think about it, any visual issues or anything like that. So
Yeah,
I
same.
compared it to my original video when it released, and it's leaps and bounds, running
Yep.
better and looking better. So that's
And I
great
appreciate them
now.
sticking
Sucks
with it.
then, great now.
Yeah, I hate this industry trend of like just doing it that way, but I do appreciate that they stuck with it and got it to a point where now 2 years later I'm playing it, and I feel like I'm playing a pretty quality experience,
Sure,
even though it
yeah.
has some issues. And there are enough moments of visual, just like mind blowing, impressive. Like you get to the top of a peak or you get to a vista, and it's just gorgeous. Or some really creatively designed spaces. It all looks very organic and like you're in nature, and yet some of the placements of like waterfalls and cliffs, and you kind of mentioned how they design cities there. I think some of the like areas you explore for various quests and whatnot, you'll get to a point where you're like, this is such a beautiful area they've made. And I'll just sit and like look around and enjoy it. And it's getting like, I feel lost in the world in the best way. Um, there are just so many moments. I wish I need to be taking more screenshots, but there are so many moments where I'm like, this is gorgeous. And I am, I'm loving running around this world, and
It's
the
awesome.
combat's fun. The story's good, all of that, but almost just the exploration of the world, I would say, is the best part of this game. And I'm loving it.
I wouldn't knock anyone for this being a top 10 game. I think
Yeah.
it's worthy of most top 10 lists. And it only gets better once minor spoilers, but I think everyone knows this. Once you unlock a flying mount,
Yeah.
um, it kind of reaches
Which
that next level of
I
like,
have not got the flying mount yet.
no, that's a little bit later. And it's also like, I think we're at the point now where maybe that's less novel, but when Forbidden West came out, that was still a newer concept, like to be able to freely fly around a map at a decent pace.
Mm-hmm.
It's very free, and even to this day, I think I played it last year. um it was still novel to me, like to hop on
Yeah.
a flying mount and fly around this map freely at a pretty good clip was
And the map's
just
big enough that
pretty cool.
I feel like they've done a good job with, like, you do the first area of the map with no, you get a ground mount, but you don't have your glider yet. And then you unlock the glider as you get into there's the small air opening area, and there's a big map with like three main sections. And that's where you have your glider. And I don't know exactly where you get the flying mount, but the map is big enough that I could see myself having the flying mount in the future will be a huge upgrade. Um,
Hmm. Oh yeah, it is
it's
for sure.
it's so good. And like I said, I also think there's going to be biomes that are my favorite that I haven't gotten to, like things on the coast, things I've seen in promotional materials where I'm like, I know that's going to be awesome. So it's great. The creature design is so cool. The story's really good. Some of the sci-fi and like AI type stuff and like what's going on takes some cool twists that is really interesting. Um, I like,
Yeah, I
there's
actually
some,
really enjoyed the story and the character moments and the
it's
plot.
a
I
good,
really enjoyed it.
this is a good enough story. I always judge it based on like, if this story was in a novel, would I enjoy reading it? And that with this one, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I
They
like
should turn, if they
Aloy.
could do it
I
well, they
like,
should turn these into books. That would be awesome.
they should, yeah. And it's like, I know Aloy has gotten some heat for being a bit of a generic like hero character, maybe a little bit, but I like
They've
her. I feel like
improved
she's
her though.
likable.
They've
Yeah, I feel
improved
like,
her quite a bit in this game, especially once you get to the DLC. I think they even
mhm,
took it another notch further in the DLC.
nice.
They're trying. She's slowly becoming a human.
Yeah,
It's
nice.
taken her two and a
Which
half
sort of
games, but
fits thematically.
I get, yeah, huh? Oh, spoilers.
They can go back and claim that was intentional. But it's good.
Yeah,
I
our bad
like
writing
Aloy.
was intentional for her
Yeah.
character development.
I like Aloy. I like being Aloy. I think she's a cool character. I think she's distinctive enough that it's like she feels like like a somewhat iconic character. There are some side characters that are memorable, that I like. I wouldn't say it has the strongest roster of characters in gaming, but it has enough that it's
No,
like
definitely not.
there's a couple that stick with me that I like and remember, and it's
I think they're
enough that I'm
enjoyable, but they won't stick with you. They're enjoyable enough
there's
that
one
you're
or
like,
two
oh,
that I'll remember. In terms
yeah,
of like really iconic, not so much. It's but the story is really, the plot is really intriguing. What's going on with Aloy is intriguing. So yeah, and then the design of the creatures like is so good. The robot dinosaurs are so cool and so well
yeah, they
made.
are.
Um, and there's the one last thing I'll say about the gameplay with the dinosaurs is like everything has its weakness, and you get different types of like weapons and ammunition, and you can kind of design your strategy of, okay, this thing's weak to this elemental type effect, and so you plan accordingly with the types of weapons and ammo you have, or certain things like will have really good armor, and so you might use precision arrows that like help take off armor plating or things like that. And so there's some strategy to the combat.
Yeah, it's honestly
I'm
got
loving it.
real time puzzle combat in a way that I don't know if we've ever seen in another game. Like it really is. I can't think of another example of real time puzzle combat, and that's really what it feels like. Is in
Yeah.
real time, you're trying to kind of solve a puzzle depending on which creature you're
Right.
facing, what kit you want to bring, what part of the creature is weakest. Can you break off and expose something? Like,
Yeah.
it can be as dumb as just shoot it with a bunch of stuff till it dies, or you can really kind of dig into the puzzle and understand each creature to the point where when you face it next time, you're like, oh yeah, I remember, let me get this
Yeah.
out and do this.
Yeah.
So
And the more, it throws a lot of creatures at you at once in some areas that can overwhelm you quickly. And so sometimes you need to kind of take one or two down fast. And the best way to do that is understand their weaknesses. So it's like, okay, I'm getting swarmed by 6 things. I'm just going to keep getting knocked over and die, and it's going to be miserable unless I can take one or two of these out really quick. And so you're like, I know they're weak to this, do this, get them down. Yeah. So yeah, I guess my summary is it's great, to the point where even though Astrobot just came out and I'm very excited to get, like, that's probably what I'll play next is Astrobot. As excited as I am for that, I'm enjoying Forbidden West enough that I'm just going to keep playing it until I finish it. And that's going to be probably another couple of weeks, at least, like at the rate I'm going at. So if you haven't played it and you're interested in it, I highly recommend it. If you liked Zero Dawn, you should absolutely play this. This is leaps and bounds ahead of the first one. Like, I think a lot of people would give the first one a 7 or 8 out of 10. For me, it was a 9, but that's like because of how much I liked certain aspects of it. I think realistically it's kind of maybe an 8 at its best. And whereas this one feels like a 9.5, 9 to 9.5. Yeah. For me, definitely on the 9.5 side of things. Love it.
Yeah. Welcome to Neverlag, where we discuss a game and then 3 months later we discuss that game again because we're never on the same schedule. So
never on the same schedule.
I'm like, I could talk about this all day. I feel like I've never talked about this game. And then I'm like, wait, I just talked about this a couple months ago, didn't I? But
you know,
the irony is not lost on me that you are playing Forbidden West and Tears of the Kingdom at the exact same time in your backlog.
Yeah.
It's kind of ironic.
It is. I don't know what's going on in my brain to make that happen, but that's where we're at.
Your brain wants to be in 2020.
Living in the past.
2-3.
I'm always 2 to 3 years in the past. So,
not that far, but I hope you finish both of them in a timely manner because they both are really good and deserve kind of that momentum through the finish line. Yep. And the DLC, as I've spoke about, is I think maybe the best content in all of Forbidden West. So it's
excited to get to it.
Good stuff, man. You're playing some good stuff over there. I will try and be brief here. My last one is Wukong. I have been playing some BMW, and I don't want to go too into this because I'm like maybe I'm a little more than halfway. I'm not really sure. From what I know, there are 6 chapters in this game. It's broken down into segments like that, chapters, and a chapter is like a location, like a jungle mountain, and you ascend the mountain, fight all these bosses and creatures, and fight a boss at the top, and the chapter ends. You get a whole cutscene, and chapter 1 is over, and then you say, yes, progress to chapter 2, and you're in a full new area and new stuff happening. So that's how the game is kind of broken down. I have finished the first... I might be farther. It depends on if there really are just 6 finite chapters or if there's more after. I don't really know. But I am just starting chapter 5. So we can talk a bit about it, but obviously for time we can be a little shorter because I might have more to say in October. But I guess to start,
I might play it next month as well. Because
okay, good. So
Astrobot's
maybe we'll talk more about
long. Yeah, I'm going to play Astrobot after Forbidden West, but it's not
but you're not going
to
finish Forbidden West and Tears of the Kingdom in September.
Well, I think Forbidden West I will. Tears of the Kingdom is going to take me longer because I'm playing that when I'm not at my TV and on the side, and so that one's a bit more back burner.
You got to give you got to give Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know how many dedicated nights you have, but you got to give it at least one dedicated night a week.
We'll see. I don't know that that's possible right now. So,
stop playing it on the toilet and give it some respect, okay?
I do have one dedicated night on the toilet a week.
On the toilet? Okay, that might work, maybe. Anyways, to start with
honey,
Wukong.
It's Tuesday night. I'm going to be on the toilet for
Tuesday
the next
night.
6 hours.
It's Tears of the Kingdom on the toilet night. It's on the schedule.
I have to do this. My legs might be numb and have fallen asleep from sitting on here for so long. But at least I'll progress.
You got to do what you got to do as a father,
Anyway, I do think I will probably at least have started Wukong by our next update, so we could talk a little bit more about it then if you want.
Well, for here and now, first I want to open it up to you. Do you have any questions or any
first
talking
of all,
points
you
wonder?
Was that from The Office? I have a question. First of all, how dare you?
How dare you? Not a question.
No, I mostly just want to hear you've talked to me a little bit about it, like, over text, but, I think my impression of this game initially was there was so much hype. I was worried it was going to fall on its face, and then it released and got a ton of positive attention, but interestingly was also just a little bit mixed. It sounds like the consensus is that this is a really cool game and does a lot of things well, but is also not like in the clear 10 out of 10 zone either. Like there are some drawbacks that people have had. And so I'm just curious to see how you feel about it, how you've landed on this. My overall thoughts are that it still looks really cool. And I think enough people have enjoyed enough of it that I still really want to play it. It was going to be next on the list. It's just Astrobot is like one of my favorite things ever. So like that has to come before it.
Astrobot,
But
kind of drop everything for Astrobot.
exactly. But other than that, like I'm kind of surprised that it feels like Black Myth Wukong is turning out better than I expected. But it also, I don't know. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. What do you think?
Well, I am very much that is very, I think that hits home pretty good. I'm very mixed on it. For starters, visually, this game for years, we were getting trailers for this game and it was just like, I know for me personally, I would watch these trailers and be like, can games ever really look like this? Is this what's coming? Is it actually running like this? And no, it's not. Like if you have
That's always how it goes.
Yeah, no, if you have like the highest of the highest end gear for a PC, I bet you this game looks really great. Nvidia's got
got
all
a
their bells and
5090
whistles yeah.
RTX
If you don't
5090.
have the most modern GPU, then Nvidia's not giving you the tools to do whatever magic they're trying to do with the graphics here. I'm sure it looks great on the top end stuff. I have a good PC. I'm running a 3080 still from a couple years ago, so not top of the line, but not dated at this point. And I actually refunded it on Steam because it just didn't look great. And also, even though I was getting good frames, I was getting 60 plus frames. There was some technical performance issues that were creating the stutter when I would turn the camera, and it was just rough. It was throwing me out of everything. So I elected to play this on PlayStation, where fidelity wise, it is much worse than on PC, obviously, but at least in performance mode, I felt like the camera rotation and everything, I was getting smooth frames, is what it felt like. But just visually, this game it's not impressive on most hardware. I don't know. You can come at me if you want in the comments or whatever if you think it looks great, but like I think this is a disappointment visually, especially from like all of the marketing that we got on this thing, and that's par for the course these days with games. But like I am not playing this game. I'm taking screenshots because I do think artistically they've done some good work here. There's some really cool areas and like set pieces and different things, but just from a like strictly fidelity performance standpoint, this game is it feels a lot like playing a PS4 game sometimes. Like it's rougher. It's rougher looking. So there's that right off the bat. Combat wise, I'm really torn with the combat here because like on one hand, I think the combat is very not maybe as well designed as something like even Stellar Blade. I feel like if you remove some of the extra bells and whistles they give you in Stellar Blade, the core combat in Stellar Blade is actually really good and really snappy, really engaging. This combat can kind of feel a little overly repetitive over time. You're kind of doing the same combo over and over again. You're not parrying. You're just trying to perfect dodge out of stuff. But on the other side, I feel like I'm enjoying combat in this game more than something like Stellar Blade, which is
Interesting.
Like I can't explain it, but just something about swinging a staff around as a monkey is just fun. Like I don't know, even though the combat can feel,
that is
it just
objectively
is
a true statement. Swinging a staff around as a monkey is just fun.
You can't go wrong.
I haven't played it, and I can tell you that's true.
Yeah. They were sitting in a board meeting. And they went, well, yeah, obviously that. What else do we do? But I look forward to fighting enemies, like even trash enemies, mobs, not bosses. Like I'm like, ooh, let me go mess this guy up real quick. It does a really good job. This game isn't really trying to be. It's kind of gotten a lot of talk of, is this a Souls game? Is this not a Souls game? Blah blah blah. It's less concerned with like how tough is this boss? Can you overcome this boss? There's a few that have been challenging, but for the most part, it seems more concerned with just like, how are you having fun? Is it fun to go? Do you feel powerful? Do you get these abilities and you can, like in this game, one of your abilities is immobilize, and you can just, as long as it's not on cooldown, you can make any enemy, including a boss. There are some bosses that like have resistance to it. But pretty much any enemy in this game, you can freeze them in time for a couple seconds. And that just feels really sad. It feels like a cheat code that most games will never give you.
Yeah, that's
And it
kind of
never
fun.
stops being satisfying. Like a boss can be in the middle of a crazy move or flying through the air, and you can just freeze them for a few
Yeah,
seconds and heal or attack them. And it just kind of has abilities like that that just feel really dope to use. Like there's another one that I don't really use much, but you like draw this circle around you of fire, and the enemy can't like come into that circle, and it allows you time to heal, and it like
that's cool.
regenerates your
Yeah,
abilities quicker. But it just visually looks really sick. Like
yeah,
it's
that's
just more
neat.
concerned with that kind of stuff. Like how freaking cool is what you're doing, as
Yeah,
opposed to like how technically engaging is the combat, how difficult is the combat. And I don't know, it's kind of refreshing in that way. Like you don't need everything to be just beating your face against the wall trying to beat this boss. Sometimes it's just cool to be a monkey with a staff flipping through the air, freezing enemies. Like it's kind of a power fantasy, really, is what
yeah,
it feels like.
yeah.
So
It kind of sometimes abilities like that are nice, where you think you on its face it sounds like it's almost too just like video gamey, and it's kind of like in Tears of the Kingdom they give you the ability to just teleport, like just go through any ceiling to
through
the
the
top of
ceiling,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And when I first heard that, I
totally,
was like, that kind of sounds too video gamey and like too
kind of
ridiculous.
dumb,
It's like one of the most satisfying things in the
so
game.
satisfying.
And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what I get too, like freezing any enemy. It sounds unfair, to be honest. I can freeze anything at any point, sort of. Um, but I like that they're leaning into just, this is cool. You got these abilities. Um, and maybe in some ways it's nice that it's a little different, because I like the technical proficiency of something like, you know, Sekiro, especially, but even like, you know, Souls game like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, where you're trying to like dodge it exactly the right moment and make sure you're just being very precise with certain things. They're kind of
yeah.
two different vibes. So, because,
And it's
and
kind
that's
of
what,
funny because I'm coming off of last month where I heavily critiqued Stellar Blade for giving you too many bombastic abilities to the point where you could disregard a boss. But what's funny is Black Myth Wukong kind of does the same thing, but it's fun. And
I
I
feel
guess
like
maybe
the,
that's the problem. It felt like the abilities in Stellar Blade, when I was mashing these abilities, they weren't as satisfying or
yeah,
fun in a fantasy way. Whereas in this game, I feel like it's just so cool and fun that I can overlook it. I don't
yeah,
know.
I don't know what it was about Stellar Blade, but some of the like the special abilities just were not as satisfying to use. I felt the same way. Like even though they looked kind of cool, what I ended up doing in my playthrough is I often didn't use them, and I just Stellar Blade had good enough technical combat that you could enjoy it without those, and it almost felt like that was in the way. Whereas it sounds
Yeah.
like Black Myth Wukong, that's kind of the point.
It's a very
Stellar
interesting
Blade,
comparison.
Stellar Blade, like one of my favorite bosses in the game is unidentified Natiba. That was one of your least favorite fights, and I think it's because you just went into it, burned through it. Whereas I didn't use my special abilities almost at all in that fight, and I just learned it's a very fast fight where she's hitting you with these two like curved swords in like different patterns that are differently timed and differently telegraphed, and it became such a fun dance to identify the move set that was coming at you and then get the right timing to block with your sword. And so I feel like with Stellar Blade, some of those special abilities detracted from the really
The core
finely
good
tuned
combat. Yeah,
core
for
good
sure.
combat they made. And I think that took away from it for you, and it could have taken away from it for me if I had leaned on it more. Whereas Black Myth Wukong, it feels like it's not as about that. Like when I first heard there was no parry in Black Myth Wukong, I was kind of disappointed, because I've
Oh
come to
yeah,
like a
it
good
definitely. I was
parry.
like, I don't know if this is gonna work.
I've come to like a good parry system, but if that's sort of not the point, and it's like, no, you're spinning around your bow staff and you're just gonna freeze a big rhino, and then you're gonna
Yep,
like, it's like they
it
designed
is.
it with
I think
something
I think
different in mind.
Stellar Blade was maybe it designed its combat around two kind of contrasting ideologies, and they conflicted with each other. Whereas Black Myth Wukong is just like, no, we're not going to be Sekiro. We're going to
Yeah.
be a monkey with a staff freezing enemies, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to feel really powerful a lot of the time. And it's
Sometimes it's
cool.
better to just accept it's different.
There are some moments with boss fights where you do kind of have to learn. You have to learn them a little bit more and maybe dodge at the right time or whatever. But
Right.
I would say 8 out of 10 bosses I'm beating first, second try, and normally that's a negative for me. But it just feels fun to be powerful in this world. I think they've kind of nailed that concept, and it's working for me. So there's
What's
that. The other thing, go ahead.
I was just say what's funny is some of the reviews I've heard people say that you're not powerful enough, and the bosses are too hard. And
I've
I
heard a
don't
lot
know.
of all over this stuff. Some
I've
people say
heard
the
that's what
game's
I'm
too
kind of
easy.
getting
Some
at
say it's
is
too hard.
I've heard very all over the place things. So I think your mileage might vary in this game, and I'm really curious to see how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But it's just funny hearing you say that because I legit remember
Yeah.
hearing a review where they're like, I just don't think you're powerful enough in this game. You're like, you just got to stick. It's like
You just gotta stick.
it
Well, to
feels like
set
this game's a bit
to set
divisive.
expectations properly for anybody, most of the bosses I think are pretty easy, to be honest. But I have heard people say this and I agree with it. There are usually one or two bosses per chapter, usually the final boss, sometimes a final of a secret area that you could miss. Those bosses tend to have a pretty large spike in difficulty, which can
Mm,
be frustrating if you're like, why are all the other bosses this level of difficulty? And then you get to the
right.
end and it's like, well, this one's crazy hard. So there is that aspect of things. And I think maybe that's contributing toward the
That feeling.
varying opinions on difficulty here.
Yeah.
Because that is true. Some of the final bosses of the chapters are like, whoa, what happened here? We turned the knob. Someone twisted the knobs. Someone
Right.
twisted their own knobs.
Right.
Um, Last thing I'll say before we dig into this, maybe more next month, is the game's long. I finished chapter 1. It was a pretty good length, and I was like, okay. I didn't quite know how many chapters there were, but I'm like, all right, I got a frame of reference here. Go into chapter 2, a little bit longer. I was like, all right, still, nothing crazy. Chapter 3, I feel like chapter 3 was twice as long as chapter 2, and chapter 4 was almost as long as chapter 3. Like
It just keeps getting
there's some
longer.
long chapters, and I enjoyed them, but like it did make me realize, like, dang, there's quite a bit of content packed into this game. These
Yeah.
levels, these chapters are very chock full of, it's very Souls in the way of, like, there's no map, and so you're really just racking your brain, like, did I go that way yet? Oh, this path branches off. Oh, I went down this path and it branched off, and
Hmm.
you're like trying to remember all the different ways you went and not miss any secrets in these semi, open zone slash just branching linear path worlds that they've made. um Pretty good and pretty large. They just keep going sometimes, so
Yeah. Is
take
the
that for
world
what it
is the
is.
world design pretty cool? The level design pretty good?
I would
Would
say
you say?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Nice.
really enjoy it. My biggest critique with the world and the level design has nothing to do with the design and more to do with, sometimes I feel like I'm hurting my eyes trying to see, because again, it doesn't, the fidelity isn't there, especially on a
Mhm.
PlayStation or whatever. And a lot of the stuff can feel grainy or kind of look um blurry in certain ways. And so sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, I forgot. This is the other thing I have to mention about this game while we're here before we wrap this up. This game has the most criminal invisible walls everywhere. It is shocking in the year of 2024 to be in a modern video game that claims to be as modern as this is, and all the trailers of how it's supposed to look. You will legit go constantly throughout these levels and see, like, oh, is that an area? That looks like somewhere I can go. Just dead invisible wall. It's just like, okay. And it gets so confusing because it's like
Mhm.
every once in a while there is an area where you can go. So you have to continue to, it's not like it's a game that isn't designed around, kind of obscured or secret areas. That is part
Yeah.
of the level design. And yet they've, like, I can't understand why they didn't just make all these areas like blocked off with mountains or bigger rocks
Right.
or something. Like, why
Why
have
do
invisible
that?
walls? It's so baffling, and it happens constantly. So if you
That's
play this
weird.
game, be prepared. You will constantly be poking into invisible walls everywhere. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a little frustrating, but yeah, it sounds like a good game
it's
with some
so bizarre.
drawbacks. Yeah.
That's why I told you guys, it's like, it kind of, in a lot of weird ways that are kind of hard to explain, it harkens back to like a PS2 kind of era game. And if you can wrap your mind around that and just be like, I don't know why there's invisible walls, but there are, and it's
Yeah, just accept it.
2006, and I'm playing Black Myth Wukong, like, I'm having fun with it. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird though. I don't know how that happened. Bizarre.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to play it still. It sounds fun. It looks pretty cool. And
Ugh.
after Forbidden West and Astrobot, I think that's what I'm going to play. So, and Tears of the
2025.
Kingdom
And
and
here's the
Lies of
kingdom.
P and Baldur's Gate 3.
All right. Well, we went way over, as is our custom. Thank you for tagging along for September about August. And we'll be back as we always foretell.
As is
you don't use
foretold
that.
by us,
You don't use the present tense of that word. Yeah, we'll be back in October, about September, to talk about more stuff. So
it's not impressive to say as we foretell, because that's just saying
as we foretell, as we are saying currently. Yeah, it's not impressive. We have to bring it up in October. Okay,
that's right.
Okay, thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time.